Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest Kevin William Paul. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, this Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama grad has TV credits which include The Goldbergs, Evil, Good Trouble, and more. He recently made his Broadway debut in The Outsiders, where he plays Bob. Please welcome Kevin William Paul. Hi. So, how are you? First of all,
I'm good.
good. I was talking about how I was such a huge fan of The Outsiders growing up. I read it in junior high. I forgot like what exact grade, but I saw that you also read it then. So you read it around then. So you were a fan also.
Where are you based, by the way? Where are you right now?
Right now I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, where?
I'm in Burbank, the Burbank area.
Yeah, nice. I
Yeah.
used to live in LA.
Oh, nice. I was really sad I didn't get to make it to San Diego to see the show
Have
there.
you been able to come see it here?
I'm gonna be there in 2 weeks to see the show.
Oh my God. Okay. And I saw you talked with Emma. I don't know if you've talked to anyone else in the cast. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think it's like actually 10 days away that I'm gonna be in New York working an event. So
That's
to
awesome.
kind of get started, I want to ask like, how is life? It's Tony Award season. Everything's crazy. I mean, and exciting.
Yeah.
And this is like your first Broadway show. So like to experience all this.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I mean, just today, it's nice because it's gorgeous out right now. So we have a few hours before the show today, and I woke up and just did a ton of errands for a few hours, and then played some basketball and came back here. You know, it's really nice with the weathers like this to just go and walk to the theater and do a show and walk home in the summer night, which is really beautiful. I think in the wintertime, I'm from Florida myself, so I'm a little spoiled. So it was really nice having something to do and structure in the wintertime, i.e. the show. But having the gray in the winter isn't always the best, to be frank. But I love it. I mean, I love what I get to do. And to answer your first kind of comment about when I found the book, it was back in Florida at a school, my high school, the Pine School. Long story short, I'm the new kid at school, and I have this teacher named Pat Stewart, who had taught for decades English. And second semester, we were reading The Outsiders. And we are also learning about this Iditarod race, which is like sled dogs in Alaska and stuff. So it was pretty cool. And I remember just being captured by like the black kind of aesthetic of the book, the black and white kind of colors. And this was before it was like quite as cool for guys at the time to like be into fashion and like things like that. Like now, all the kids younger than me, they're so good at it. And like my friends and me, we're all playing catch up. But back then it was like, you know, you got a sense of style, but we didn't talk about it as much. And I love that there was this aesthetic to The Outsiders. Like it was like black and white and leather jackets and jeans and all this chunky stuff. And at that point, it was my first year at a private school. So I'm wearing like a little polo button down and all this stuff. And I was going to the cool, big, bad public school before, but like, you know, so, and I'm the new kid, and the school was very insular, and that a lot of the kids who I'm still close with to this day, we were just in a group chat actually just a moment ago. My friend's getting married, but a lot of those kids went to that school since they were 3, 4, 5 years old, and there were less than 100 kids in a grade. And so it was just a different situation. And so in talking to people over the past year about The Outsiders and like me first hearing about it and learning about it in school, in retrospect, I'm realizing it not only was impactful and fun to read, and I really loved learning about the book, and it was really easy to digest at the time, but also it kind of mirrored, you know, Ponyboy and this kind of intimacy Ponyboy has with the reader. And you immediately kind of go on this journey with Pony, and then through all these stories, and everyone, good or bad, whatever you want to call it, is intriguing, and you kind of identify with everybody. Even at a young age, it's very accessible, but it had these darker tones. And so I really loved it. And And the only problem was I kept messing up Dally and Daryl because it was Derry and Dally. And so Becca, I'm on all the tests and it's like Gary, Dally, Derry, Dally. And it was just a tough thing.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Those
That was
teachers,
outsiders for me. You know what I mean?
those teachers must have had so much fun writing trick questions about the name.
Yeah, they did. They did. I definitely think they had a good time writing true questions. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Like let's at least make all the students miss one question on the test, even if they know the book.
You're speaking like a true teacher. My mom's an educator, so I have a lot of respect for the teachers. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and also I think the amazing thing about the Outsiders book is that like everything that's come out of it, I mean, I feel like I haven't seen the show yet, but it seems to match the tone of the book.
Yeah.
And the movie also really matches the tone of the book well.
Yeah, I mean, we have a fantastic show, if I do say so myself. Like, even if I'm not standing on that stage, I even objectively, I think it's a wonderful piece of theater, and I believe in it. I believe in the way it affects people, and um, I'm so grateful. It's been a dream come true to work with these collaborators, and not just my castmates, but even all the creatives, and even down to the producers and just everybody. It really feels like a family, and I was somewhat skeptical about that concept after spending a few years after graduating drama school. I went to Carnegie and then I left. And I remember feeling a lot of like, okay, you got to kind of persevere and survive in this industry. And a lot of these kind of tropes about what the theater world is like or the film world is like and everything. Some of them aren't so true anymore. And I have to say, this has just kicked that to the curb and brought me back to this kind of childhood innocence. Yet at the same time, it's provided me with a wonderful opportunity to mature and grow as a professional and learn a lot about what the industry is and what the business is and how to sustain over a long period of time and how to work with people who have such a variety of different visions and come together, which was something that Danya talks a lot about. Saw her speak recently with the Coopermans who choreographed and Adam and everybody who was a part of it and Jamestown. And they were talking about how one of the last times they got together till the bitter end, we kept doing these workshops and they really just had to keep coming together and trying on each other's hats. And the director would almost talk about lighting, and the lighting person would talk about directing, and vice versa. And that we are the product now of telling that story.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm gonna get back into the Outsiders a little bit later. I want to ask, have you always wanted to be an actor and like perform on stage? And when was the moment that you realized that?
By the way, we have to do this interview next time in the winter time, although I just kind of hate it on the winter because if I keep sweating, I'm going to lose my um, so your question is I have it on 67. That's what I was clicking over there. I have it on 67. So we should be good. It was on like 72.
Oh no, I
Your
can't
question
do
like
it.
how'd I get into theater, Becca?
Yeah.
I got into theater first and foremost, it was just always around me. Music, art, pretty much I was exposed to everything as a kid. I have wonderful parents and a wonderful, massive family. And on all sides, my family loved everything from blasting music in the car to classical music on Sunday mornings to taking me to concerts. Prince was one of my first concerts that I ever went to. You know what I mean? Like my grandparents would listen to Frank Sinatra and drive in the car. You know, I just had such an exposure. My babysitter would listen to the Yin Yang Twins and rap. Like I was all over the map. So that's first of all with the music kind of influence of that. Also growing up, you know, it was before social media was quite as prevalent when I was younger. And it was a lot of like, I remember like going to the grocery store or walking into Walgreens and just seeing magazines papered everywhere. And that seemed like kind of the interesting, that was social media essentially back then, is picking up the post and picking up people. And I was weekly and you'd see it at a doctor's office. I'd see it, when you're a little kid, I'm the youngest and I have an older sibling. And like, there's a lot of sometimes like waiting and doing things. And what do you do in your board before these things? You would read, you would look at stuff. And so I think there also is an exposure to just like this shiny idea, not of like, I wouldn't have even comprehended like what it meant at 7 years old or like fame or anything, but it was more like understanding that people were interested in these groups of artists, these groups of people. and interested in things that didn't have to just do with their art. And now that I'm stepping into that world more, there's so many sides to that. But as a kid, it was exciting. And frankly, I think it was a heck of a lot healthier to look at a magazine and read an article, even if it wasn't true, than it is for kids to just scroll on their phones. But that's a different conversation. But that was my exposure there. And then caddy to that, I was always an athlete playing sports, but using my body a lot. And to me, so much of art, I've brought a very athletic mindset. I've had some wonderful coaches that have encouraged that for me. And a lot of guys in the cast with me played sports growing up too, and kind of did both or got one. And so I kind of like, as I was doing that, I was playing in the yard a lot growing up in Florida. I was essentially improving, like creatively. I would be outside for hours with my toys and different like balls and sticks and stones, and just kind of a lot of times alone. Even though I wanted my sister Amanda to play with me, but a lot of times alone, and like doing that was big. And then there's the whole other side to this, TV, movies, all of that encouragement from the family. And on the other side, it was that my mom started a children's performing arts center and a children's theater. But the reason I kind of like pause before I start with that is like her journey of creating that, and my stepfather of creating that together, it happened as I grew up. So now what it stands at, you could walk in the doors and immediately it has theater and the teachers and everything. But when I was a kid, it started with like one little space called theater. You know what I mean? So like, I hesitate sometimes to say that right away, simply because like where I was really lucky and fortunate is that I had that exposure, but rather than it just already existing and then like choose it, not choose it, they never forced me to do it. Nor did my dad. Like no one was like, you have to do this or you have to do sports or anything. It was always just work hard, do well in school kind of thing. And then be respectful. And then aside from that, it was, but anything you want to be a part of, as long as you commit, you're welcome to do this or do that. And so frankly, until I was like 11, 12, 13, even though I was around it from the time I was born, I wasn't doing shows. I wasn't doing it, but I was sitting next to my mom watching her direct. You know what I mean? And I was doing things.
Learning.
And I was absorbing since I was born. And so in that case, and my dad played sports in college. So like I just had a lot of exposure to like people who were passionate about, all those things. And then finally, I was really fortunate that my folks all love traveling, and they raised us in a way where like my sister and me, like we were constantly coming with them to go. They weren't like leave the kids at home. It was like we came to dinner and we were expected to act accordingly, and traveling on trips. And we're really fortunate to be able to do that. And what I think that also allowed was for me to see different cultures and different ways of thinking about the world, which I'm so lucky. That's just straight up lucky that I was raised in a house. I was able to do that and I valued that. And so I really was exposed to a lot. And that's really when the dreamer in me really took off a lot, is when I would go to these different places and kind of let my mind wander once again without a phone, and create stories in my head about, this family and this Gothic structure over here, because I was bored. And then when you're bored and you don't really understand what you're there for as a little kid, you start to create. And then over time, of course, it's called Starstruck Theater. That became my home of where I trained and did all of my training and everything. And then eventually that led me to Carnegie Mellon Drama School. So that's kind of the long spiel of that.
And what a great school. I assume that the sports mentality kind of helped along the way because of like the perseverance and determination that you have to have in sports. How did that help when it came to training for acting on stage?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest thing was that playing sports, you have to withstand a certain level of discomfort at all times. It puts you out of your comfort zone. And I think that's really healthy and important. And the simplest way it does that is physically, but it's also so much mental. And tennis was really my main sport a lot. I've over the past, 10 years, I've really gotten into running a lot. And I played a lot of basketball and everything. Tennis was my main sport. And, it's so mental. And I think so that's one aspect. Also, being able to be in your body as an actor to me is one of the most useful tools. And knowing how both to, which is where dance helps to relax and release the body, yoga, dance, things like that, knowing how to feel and sense, your ankle and your neck and this and release things or do certain movements, but also knowing how to charge it and use it and weaponize it to get what you want. And a lot of acting is achieving, going for the goal and then having to push through obstacles, right? It's like the hero's journey in a book. And so
absolutely.
I think that physicality is really help. I know it's very helpful. And also, the phrase like I'm in my head or get out of your head, I kind of feel a few different ways about that because it's a bit of semantics. Like we're always in our head, you know what I mean?
We are.
But all of that to say, then it's like we'll feel your body, connect with your body. And so that's first for sports. And second, it's team. It's teamwork a lot of times. Whether I'm playing doubles in tennis or I'm just playing singles and it's with my coach and my other teammates. Or if it's basketball or anything I was doing, there's a team mentality and you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I always believe in lifting everyone up around you. And that's what we talk a lot about in our cast.
Yep.
And so I think that that's really important. And also it's just really fun. Like I think sports are one of the most fun things to do personally. I know some people, especially, a lot of my friends, like some people are like, they did acting and theater and music because they didn't like sports. Like I love all of it. I love dancing. I love singing. I play a lot of instruments. I write music. I do all this. I act, but I also love the sports. And like, I think it's just fun to explore your body, your competition, yourself, to feel other people out and to learn about yourself. And I find sports, just like music and other things, are a really easy way to connect with people. Like you move to a new town. I remember my uncle once told me, and like, this is almost for being a fan, but like being a sports fan is one of the easiest ways. You could go halfway across the world, but if you like soccer, you could talk to someone about that and immediately create a bond, you know? And so I think it also was a really great way to have a sense of community.
Agreed. As someone who does adult gymnastics right now, agreed.
Wow. That's so cool. Tell me about that.
Oh, I just do. I grew up like doing gymnastics, and my sister went to OU for NCAA gymnastics.
Okay.
So I wanted to get back into it and do something athletic like a couple times a week. So I just go
Yeah.
twice a week, and it's so fun. I challenge myself, and I've gotten better than I was when I was a kid.
Oh
So
yeah, that's great. That's
that's
great.
pretty awesome.
That's
Yeah,
very
and it's
gymnastics. Is cool.
oh,
Especially
it's awesome. It's very mental, but it's
walking,
fun.
it's like the little narrow thing. What's that called? The little brown thing when you walk.
The
It's like
uh
walking.
the beam.
Beam.
Yes.
Watch out. The beam, baby. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's horrifying when you get on it.
So what do you do when you're like walking across the beam and you're trying to focus yourself, but you have to remain loose and
I mean, right now I'm only at like the walking part on the beam. Honestly, I used to do more on the beam, but I've not been doing beam as much during my adult gymnastics classes because it's scary.
I love that you call it adult gymnastics.
Yeah, it's like teen and adult,
Okay.
like twice a week, and it's really cool. It's really cool.
Oh,
My
that's
sister was a beam specialist though, so she was doing all sorts of stuff on the beam. And
okay.
and my parents were actually tennis players. My dad went to UT Austin for tennis.
Oh, great school. Wow.
Yeah.
You still have it?
He got hurt. Um, so he like kind of he hasn't played in a while, but he
Bum
misses it.
knee, screwed up ankle, something with the wrist.
Something with the knee.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Ooh, not good. Not good.
kick some ass.
So, how do you mentioned Carnegie Mellon. University, which is an awesome school. How do you choose to like what school out of every drama school or theater school you're gonna
Yeah.
go to?
It was really just I heard it was the best of the best. That's first and foremost. I was just like, this is for the kinds of things that I value most, which are you know, acting and the artistry of like really committing to the work and not just committing to the piece, not just committing to the moment, to the individual line you're saying, but like committing to the process of being an artist throughout one's life. And so that kind of aligned with my values. It's a very small school, very selective, and I definitely I like a lot of attention, and I like to move at a very fast pace. And so going to Carnegie was helpful for that. So I felt like I could groove and move and shake and ask a lot of questions and have a nice rapport with my teachers and be really focused in that way. And then in particular, I hadn't even really heard of it, but a kid a few years older than me who was at Starstruck ended up getting in, and he was one of the best kids at my parents' spot back in Florida. And then he gets in there,
Oh,
and I was like, okay, I'd heard about it, didn't really think about it, didn't know I was going to pursue theater, until a year
yeah.
before I graduated. I was playing sports, I was doing music, I was focused on my studies, and I went to Berklee College of Music for a summer program, and then
Wow.
I decided, okay, now I really want to do theater actually. And so then I eventually found my way to I applied to University of Michigan, wonderful school, and NYU's college summer programs, which at the time, I don't know now, but they were pretty competitive to get into,
I'm
and
sure
really
so.
smart summer programs. And I got into both of them. And I remember it was kind of like a mini college process. There were pre-screens, you had to sing songs, you had to act, and I had the option to go to both. And that was definitely felt validating, to have some external validation outside of my hometown and everything. And I mean, look, I grew up with parents, like, even when I started to take it more seriously, like, I was not getting a role unless I was 10 times better and more equipped for that role than anyone else who could do it. You know what I mean? Because my mom ran the thing. You know what I mean? Like I had that pressure, but I loved that. Um, and so it was nice though to have random people be like, "Hey, you're great, and we're picking you." Out of
Validation.
validation. Chose NYU. I can't really remember the reasons right now. I feel like maybe the New York thing. I liked both schools, but I chose NYU, and it was wonderful. And I actually just saw one of the dance teachers at NYU, Byron Easley, recently when we were rehearsing
Oh,
for the Outsiders and doing one of the workshops, which was a beautiful full circle moment. And um, and a lot of the teachers there had a wonderful time, and a lot of the teachers there at the end said, "Kevin, we would love for you to potentially come here." I was a junior going into my senior year, but like you'll audition everywhere as you should, but Carnegie Mellon is a really strong school, and a
yes.
lot of us went there, and we think you should seriously consider Carnegie Mellon. And that's kind of, I think, what locked it in for me. I was like, okay, like I already kind of heard of it here and there. I was starting to learn more about what the good schools were and what's competitive. And then that was kind of the cherry on top of solidifying where it was. I was going to set my sights on. However, I applied everywhere. I applied to, FSU, Mich, Miami, smaller, Hart School, like all over. And then I was very, very, very fortunate. I worked very hard. I had a lot of support, and I got in everywhere, which was wonderful. Um, except, except, except I last minute, I got into every musical theater school I applied to, because I only applied to musical theater, like 15 schools. And except last minute, I remember before the deadline, we're driving home from one audition in January, which is later. And my mom goes, "Why don't you send an application to Juilliard?" It's like, okay. And I sent an application to Juilliard, and I got a couple callbacks at the school, which is great. And then I
That's
didn't get, and then I didn't get into the acting program at Juilliard. So technically I did not get into all of the places, but love a lot of my friends that went to Juilliard. So great for them. I'm still bitter about it.
an
I don't know,
interest.
but it's good. It's good. And so, and even that, even auditioning at these schools, at Carnegie and Juilliard in particular, and a few places, Michigan, a few of them, I remember the process, Miami, like they work you, and I learned a lot. And so that's also what made me feel when I went to Carnegie, I just felt at home. And I felt a really strong connection, and they had me taking my shoes off in the audition and going room to room. And sing the different songs. I remember at Juilliard for the callbacks, like we're like lying on our backs, imagining things out of a treasure chest and doing all this work. At Michigan, they had me play original music I'd written on the piano, and I got to talk to like Pasek and Paul on the phone and like everything. So like all these wonderful experiences that are really fun audition experience, which is not
Wow.
normal. And then Carnegie was the place. And then I was really fortunate that a lot of places wanted me to go there. And so I was able to get a really great merit scholarship at Carnegie. And I just felt really welcomed. And I was like, here I go. And so that's where I went. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm intrigued by Berkeley too, by the summer program you did at Berkeley.
Yeah.
So
And Bob,
is like one of your goals to write a musical with your own music in it?
it's a great question. I, I would say right now, a goal would just be simply to put out music in whatever form it is that I am proud of and that I feel confident and secure in kind of the way that it is being shared. And frankly, I continue to write music all the time, and I write a lot of more kind of standalone, you know, indie pop rock singer songwriter stuff. But I also, of course, have always had a great time writing things that could live within the world of a show. And at Carnegie, there's something called Playground, which is a week of a festival where you apply to do like student projects and things. And I did a one-man show once, like a 45-minute one-man show, and I wrote all these monologues. I did like 10 to 12 songs that was like an hour long kind of auto drama essentially of a certain aspect of my life and told through all the songs that I wrote in monologues. And that was one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had. But it was not just because of the writing. I also, which I've always known, but I came to really understand, I loved all aspects of putting on a show. And I mean, I grew up with this, but I never really thought about it that way. And I was like, oh, wow, I really loved working with, you know, the the um the graphics and the lights and understanding what I was going to wear and just all the different elements that come into putting together a piece of theater or film. And so it was really fun to see it from all sides as well as being the performer. And I love that responsibility. Um, so I think that would be the goal. However, like right now, I could play you 10 different songs, you know what I mean? And I have finished material. And it's not that I'm sitting on it never to share it. It's just I decided like 2 years ago or so, I said, Kevin, like, you know, through COVID and through the strike and all of these things,
Yeah.
I said, you know, and through persevering through that, I had lots of discussions with different mentors and people and family members, and I worked a lot on myself. And I realized I really wanted to continue to hone in on being excellent at one thing rather than being uber diversified from the gate. And by the way, everyone lives their life differently. There's people who can come straight out of school and they could release music and go on auditions and work on things. For me, I just realized to allow the acting to be that is the job. That's what I went to school for. That's what I have the agents for. That's what I've been working on TV shows, film sets, now doing my first Broadway show. Like that's what I've been building. And the music and everything else is a beautiful part of my life. And should the opportunities come in this short period of time at this stage of my life, wonderful. But in the meantime, keeping the focus there. However, I 100% plan to have a studio one day or to be able to work in a studio and go there. And I'm always looking for collaborators. And I mean, last night I just was playing 2 more songs, you know what I mean? I throw it on the voice memos, and a lot of times I'll come back and edit them, and I'll spend weeks working on a song. And then once I finish it, I save the lyrics, I save the final recording of it, and then I save it away. And eventually at some point, I will share a lot of them in some capacity with the world. And it could be in a year, it could be in 5 years, it could be in 20 years, but whatever that is, it'll happen. And then growing up, and even at Carnegie, like there were times I played original music other than that auto drama. And I would say it was pretty well received. And I've had friends who wanted to sing some of my songs at cabarets and things. So we'll see, but yeah.
What an honor. That's really cool. And I'm very, very impressed by the solo show with all your music in it.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
it was called Man Up. which was essentially
Wow.
words of, you know, masculinity and fathers and sons, which brings us back to The Outsiders and the concept of the whole show.
Yes.
And, which is also interesting because when I first was auditioning for The Outsiders, I went on a trip to Atlanta with a friend of mine who I was actually at a recording studio with because
Oh,
over the years, like I've continued to learn and expose myself to a lot of the music industry because to me, it's just in the meantime, learning, learning, learning. And so I was going to the studio a lot with him and learning and recording and getting behind the mic. And we took a trip to Atlanta impromptu. And I remember one morning I was kind of going through it. I was trying to do this 5 a.m. club thing. I was literally sleep deprived for months, but I did it. And I remember I out of the blue kind of went for a run and I laid down at like 5:30, probably somewhat delirious on a park in Atlanta. And I wrote this poem about man and masculinity and fathers and sons. And it was like, a page or two long. And then I never thought about it again, but I wrote it right around when I started auditioning for The Outsiders. And we do this thing where we share stuff in this circle called Chalice, which is another story we can get into. And I don't know why I remembered it. Well, of course, I remembered it because of the themes, the similarity. But like I hadn't thought about it for a really long time. And it kind of speaks in almost like a couplet rhyming scheme and almost like a little Dr. Seussy, but like with an edge. And I can't believe I just said that, but like I ended up sharing it with the group when we were in the rehearsal room at Open Jar Studios, and it was a really beautiful moment, and I felt really seen by my castmates, and I feel that it was impactful for them as well. And so I just love those kinds of moments too, you know?
yeah. And the like comfort, the having comfort, like the comfort to share what you've created with the people you're working with is so cool. And I think speaks to the chemistry that you all have behind the scenes, which is awesome.
Where are you from?
I'm from Texas, actually.
The chemistry. I was like, oh, she's from Texas. All right.
Yeah, I'm from Texas.
Where-
Dallas, North Texas.
a lot of people in Texas, Austin, Dallas, and everything come to see the show. Um,
Y- Yes,
I,
because I think we all read it
I
in
went to a bachelor
school.
party in Austin a few years back. I
I
remember.
think in every Texas school it was a required reading, but I've talked to people on the East Coast and like West Coast, and they're like, "What's The Outsiders?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
No, we
Like,
had to party too.
like what?
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
I want to get into your audition for The Outsiders. When did you hear that this was becoming a stage show? And I mean, obviously, the influence that the book had on you probably made you want to audition. So,
I
uh,
first heard about it in like 2019 when I was in LA.
pre-COVID.
And I think they were doing like a workshop where they were doing a different rendition with a different director. And it seems like they had been workshopping it for years, which they had been, and most of the roles were cast. And I think they were looking to fill out some of the ensemble. And I think I went in for like, I think I taped, I think, but I can't remember because I also think that maybe they were like, oh, wait, never mind. I can't remember the specifics. But like, there was no script, there was no anything, there were no songs. And I just got like two sides, none of which exist in the script anymore. And it was like, for a character, one or two characters, one was like a social, one was a greaser. And um, I remember taping in like a turquoise polo shirt that my roommate Spencer let me borrow, comb my hair for the Soch guy, and then I think for the greaser guy, I don't remember what I did. And there were just like one was like a little monologue, one was a scene. And I think they ended up sending it. I truly don't remember. And then I heard nothing. And then I also heard nothing just about the project overall. Um, like that was around that time. And then fast forward years later, that was literally all I heard. Because I also wasn't in New York with the theater scene like that. I had gone in for 3 or 4 select projects that were New York based theater, workshop, Broadway things that they came out to LA to cast. And 2 of those I got pretty far down the line and would have totally come to New York to work on those. Um, but other than that, I was doing TV and film out in LA,
Yeah.
and there was way less of that than there is way less of the theater stuff than there is living in New York. So that was, and I just didn't know. I didn't have like my ear to the ground of really what was going on. So I don't really know what happened with that. I've heard that I think it was like another production and it didn't happen. It was supposed to happen in Chicago. I think they were doing workshops before that. Maybe that's what I had sent in the thing for. I don't remember exactly. I don't know who was still cast. I know Sky, who's our Johnny, was definitely a part of it this whole time. So I could probably ask him. And then fast forward to 2022, we have COVID. We're getting out of COVID a year. I'm working in New York. And around February, I got a tape, like an audition tape, to go into understudy one or two roles in a workshop of The Outsiders, but now it was with Danya Tamer. That's how much time had passed. And that was so I feel like dip my toe in there. And then here was more like, let's get water a little bit and see what this is. Had a week to do it, which is wonderful. It was one of them was to understudy Daryl, the oldest brother. And so the show once again was already mostly cast. And I worked like hell on it. I remember I had never done this before, and I had these two like $5 t-shirts that I like didn't really like how they fit, and I decided to like poke holes in them and rip them up and wear them. One was white, one was black, and I wore them in the tape. I really committed. I remember it was like a good amount of speaking material, not just with the singing, but with the speaking material, and I like really got in on it. And I taped it with a mentor of mine, Mark, and he and I both said, hey, you know what? Like, it's one thing to do a really great job on a tape or on any tape, but it's another when you also can say, objectively, I'm a really good fit for this world. So I'm sure I'll hear something that heard nothing. And I showed the tape to one or two people, frankly, because I was excited and I was really proud about it. And I thought, oh, it's a theater thing. We're coming out of COVID. I'm finally here. That's what I went to school for. And like, really proud of this. Heard nothing. And then fast forward to like July, and they're doing a workshop of The Outsiders. And I like see little posts from people. I don't really know what's going on. And it's in July, and I'm on a trip with my mom upstate. And I get an audition notice to go in room for The Outsiders, for Danya and them, for like a first read thing, for the same understudy thing and stuff. And I said, okay. And I once again took it quite seriously. It was nice that I already knew a good amount of the material from that first go through. And I had like, once again, it was uncanny. I had like 2 weeks to prepare. Like, you never get that, you know?
Wow.
So boys coach, and we're really getting into it. I go in, and also in this first read, like Danya happens to be there, which usually directors, producers, people come later on for callbacks and things. So they're on there, and Matt Hinkle was in there, and I come in and I do the 2 or 3 scenes. I sing the song. They asked me to sing a song of my own that I brought in, so sing that too. And I walked out, and I definitely felt pretty good about it. But without any hindsight bias, I still didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah. You never know, I feel like, in those audition rooms. Like,
And then
you can
that
feel
whole
really good.
month, I went in 4 or 5 times for callbacks over the next few weeks, and eventually was going in for like 3 roles at the same time by my final comic. But they had narrowed it down where I was kind of understanding 2 or 3 of them were like understudy things, but one of them at the end was to play Bob, who I actually played Bob and the cop. And that was to actually play the role, not, which was exciting. And so I went in for that. And I remember there was a lot of laughter in the room when I went in for that, which was funny. And then Danya, I mean, everyone speaks so highly of this process, but she really gets to know her artists and then at the end, I remember Justin Levine is wonderful when he came over and he's like, seeing how I jam with the music. And later on, I thought he was trying to like test me with my voice and stuff. And like maybe a little, but really, I've heard him tell stories. I think it's also, it's like his kind of like friendly meter of like, is this person someone I can work with? like if I have them do it, I'll do it again, do it like this, and kind of ask the impossible of someone and see if they're willing to just try, or are they kind of like, You
Right?
know,
Like,
I'm
what are you doing?
like, okay, yeah, oh, you want
Yeah.
this? Like I'm just all over the place, trying to just create whatever this sound, whatever this thing is that he's looking for, which was like, I think a nothing thing because it was, how do I work with him?
Experiment.
Yeah, I
And
was experimenting. It was really fun. And then I sat with Danya, and before I left, they gave me a really nice compliment. I think there was a bit of a vibe of like, hey, like we think you're great for this world of the show, and we're just trying to find the best place to put you. But that still doesn't mean anything. I mean, I've been up for, uh, you know, leads in a TV show where I have someone before walking in, you got this like fifth callback, like showrunners there, and they're like, this is yours, like you're crushing it, and then I don't get it. You know what I mean? So like I've learned so much now, like no matter what's said, just to be grateful because those people, they're not lying. They're just, so many factors go into why someone gets cast. And
puzzle.
and it's a miracle. And so I remember as I'm leaving, Donnie said, hey, come on back after like 5 calls, come on back. I sit down and basically asked, are you really willing to do what I'm asking? Like what I want from you in relation to kind of Bob and Pop was to really go there, to hold this space of playing this role, and to really not shy away from it because it's what I need for the project. It's what we need, and it's not going to be easy. But can you do that? Of course.
You're like,
And then fast forward a year and a half, almost 2 years now. It's been a wonderful challenge, but a very big learning opportunity on so many fronts. And it's been fantastic. And I ended up finding out I was in a taxi and I was literally driving past 42nd Street and like 6th Ave near Broadway when I get the call from her, an email, and then a call following up. Or is an email, I think, saying I booked it. And then my agents called and I got out of the car and it was with one of my mentors, Mark, would help me tape the first time in February when I heard nothing. So I got out of the car and I was like, oh my God.
I heard back.
That was, I think, was that for Broadway or was that for La Jolla?
Listen,
Conflating the two. I think that might have been for Broadway, actually. I think the La Jolla one, though, I found out similarly. I got to ask, actually, now I'm putting
look,
them together.
when I see that,
It was really,
it's
because they
like,
were both something. Then doing the out of town, a lot of people, didn't all transfer with us
yeah.
from for various reasons. So there was a whole nother few months of, am I going to make it to the Broadway one? You know? So very fortunate to be here.
So I want to ask, since you've been with it since La Jolla, how has your portrayal of Bob changed from La Jolla to Broadway? And like, what have you learned about him as you've continued to play him over the years?
I would say patience and um, trusting in myself, the process, and all of the people around me, the elements around me. Um, Letting go as much as possible, um, and learning, most importantly, how to navigate darkness and shadows and ghosts in a role, and going there and then being able to come in and out of that in my day-to-day life and sustain, and actually learning that the more I can rest and recuperate and feel light outside of the work, the deeper and darker I can go and access in the work, which is another way of saying trust yet again. Um, and really riding that wave, while keeping my focus has been very important. And then also just with the working environment of inhabiting, bringing, I create a lot of the tension in the story and the
Yes.
strife and agony and things that happen. A lot of that is accentuated by things I say or do throughout Act One and into the beginning of Act Two. And so, um, being able to hold that space while also being able to be as much myself and a team player and fun, to work with at the same time. And those would be the biggest learning things since La Jolla.
Is it hard to create like a villain character, so to speak, for the stage for you?
I would say it's exciting because to me, I don't see it as villain or hero. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
I of course subjectively can understand what we label things as, like bad guy, bully, this, hero, protagonist. But I think as an artist, I approach this the same way I would approach if I played Pony Boy. Like it's who am I? Where am I coming from? What's up? How do I connect to it? Like I look at every method on the branch of acting and art and everything to connect. I use music, I use imagination, I use play, and week to week and over the months and the time working with this project to just anything to get in there and get into the guts of it. And I have a lot of wonderful people in my life who have worked in various capacities that I lean on from time to time and get advice from if I ever hit bumps in the road and I'm looking for avenues of how to move forward. Um, and it's a wonderful process. Um, yeah.
So going in to like the Broadway run of this show, how do you prepare when you're told that you're going to Broadway with the show? How do you prepare to make your Broadway debut? Because it's like such a huge, it's
It's
so celebrated.
important. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is like I love great art. And through my travels, I've backpacked on a dime summers before since graduating college and just gone off to Europe for a month or two and stayed at hostels and done things and explored. And through things like that, through watching, I mean, I love cinema. I love great art, great theater, and like watching like Scorsese and Tarantino and just some of these people that I dream of working with. And Daniel Day-Lewis and people that inspired Bradley Cooper, like all of these actors and artists that like I watch their performances, I listen to their talks, I listen to their interviews, and so you could start to combine a life of input of all these things. I listen to podcasts. I love this podcast, Smart List, which I've listened to for a few years now, and well, and Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes, and like just their opinions on art and how they ask people questions and people's process, and like all of these things add up to leading me to be able to kind of approach how do I do this thing through all of that input, through that art piece I saw when I was walking up that hill in Nice, and I went to this museum, and then this person showed me this photograph here, and then 2 months later I was listening to this podcast, and John Goodman said this thing about when he was in New York 40 years ago and the way the subway was, and that lives in my brain. And then I've had coachings and classes, and I've gone to wonderful schools and had mentors, and so it just all comes together. And then I think in the doing of it, a lot of times I lean on the people who have done it before me. Everyone from Brando and Paul Newman and people that even mentioned our show, all the way through to now. And I watch wonderful performances, and especially things that I don't think are great, I learn a lot from. And I see a lot of theater. Um, and I lean on being inspired and excited by the people that I want to work with, some of whom I get to work with at this point. I mean, being able to be in a room with Angelina Jolie and all the experience she's had, you know, creates a excitement and a confidence, and she's so knowledgeable on so many fronts. And what she chooses to pick up on or say or share has been wonderful. And then like sitting in a room with Adam Rapp, one of the most fantastic writers I've ever met, and hearing his thoughts on things. There's just inspiration all around. And then with Donnie at the helm, just encouraging that exploration, telling me about books and movies to watch, and the Last Picture Show is one of them, and like all these different things to inspire, all helped me. And then frankly, it's my family and friends and mentors and people in my life guiding me along the way.
Yeah. So you mentioned Tarantino and Scorsese. I have to go on a tangent real quick and say, have you ever seen For the Record while you were living in LA? Because I feel like you would love it.
It's called For the Record.
Like For the Record Live, and they do like shows that combine movies of like Tarantino's and Scorsese.
Writing it down right now. For the Record.
It's so good. It's like magic.
Okay.
And
I
they're
love.
making their own like traveling venue. So
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean, all of them. Also talking of great directors, I'm pretty sure I see one of the Softer brothers at my local coffee shop sometimes in New York on the Upper Side, but I don't know, and I'm never gonna bother him like that. But this is what I'm saying, like these wonderful artists who I'm like Paul Thomas Anderson. I was
Yeah.
watching. What did I watch like last year? Like Phantom Thread, and I'll rewatch the movies like twice. I was going on a bender with Michael Mann films. I was watching like Heat and everything, and just having the best time and stuff that isn't always even directly related to what it. I watched Barbie. Like I loved Greta Gerwig talking on a podcast like a year ago, and it totally set me spinning for a month on like my approach to my acting, my art, and just certain things she said. It's like all these people, you know what I mean?
Drawing influence from all the art.
What you said?
Drawing influence from like all the art.
Yeah, like a lot of times I just when I feel like I got nothing, sometimes then what I still do have is that I'm a fan. I
Yeah.
love what I do. And I think a lot of the people around me, are really inspiring. And by the way, like I've learned enough now to know like it doesn't mean that I'd be best friends with all these people. It doesn't mean like everyone's meant to get along with each other, but it just means that the art and the creativity and what these people create, it's inspiring and we connect to that as people. And that's what I care most about. I care. I'm gonna laugh because they make fun of this on Smartlist, this podcast, but like we're storytellers. Like that is what we do, and I just think it's wonderful. Yeah.
It's so true. I feel like it's the most important to be a fan first of everything because then you have that passion and that determination to get in the door.
Like one of the best things, I got to work on a workshop of a new musical that's been developing for throughout a year, and I got to work with one of the most wonderful composers on Broadway, Jason Robert Brown, and like I listened to him growing up forever, and like Steven Schwartz, I've been able to work with him, and he's a mentor of mine, and like someone that like is a Carnegie Mellon alum and like supports all of us, and like just these wonderful artists, even in the theater space, who like wrote songs that as a kid I'm sitting in my bathroom, like singing in the shower, and then getting to even just stand in the same room of them, and then being able to like sing one of their songs or something and develop something like it. Those are the things that I will take with me. You know what I mean? Those are
Yeah.
the things that inspire me, and keep me going.
It's that pinch me moment.
Yeah.
So I want to ask because I listened to the album, the cast recording on like a repeat when it came out. I was expecting to love it, but I wasn't expecting to like love it that much. I think it brought back a lot of nostalgia from watching the movie on and reading the book as a kid because the music just fit. What was your reaction when you first heard all the music of the show in the show?
All freaked out. We were like, people were crying and howling and dancing. I tend to get a little still at first with new things like that. Like it's a lot of input and I'm kind of, I take it in. So I was a little more here and then I would get really excited. And I remember I biked home after and I was biking, and also like John Mayer is one of my favorite artists, and like he supposedly recorded Continuum at this place where we recorded the album at Power Station Berkeley, which used to be something else. And Lou Reed, for example. I mean, you're propped up on a Lou Reed book, Lou Reed, The King of New York, and like these people have recorded things at the studio. So like I felt this sense of like belonging. Like, oh my God, like look at me. I'm starting to, I'm like in the world of this stuff that I think is so cool. So that was my feeling. And then hearing myself was really wild. I was like, what? That's me? Like so cool.
And it's gonna
And
like live forever.
Palo Santo and incense, and like we had this whole beautiful thing. And Scott and the guys who run and helped produce the record were wonderful and had beautiful things to say at the beginning. So it's just wonderful all around.
Yeah, and the music is gonna like live forever on that album now. Like it's gonna go down. It's
We'll see.
gonna go down in in history whenever like someone like searches the Outsiders on
Let's
Spotify
go.
or
I
some
love it.
like music app. It's gonna come up now
Let's go.
next to Stevie Wonder's "Stay Gold" too. So that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. I think. What's your personal favorite song on the album?
It changes. It changes. I can't pick one.
Understand.
I think right now what I'm thinking of, Brody did a fantastic job on the Fallon show, and they're posting all of that right now. And Great Expectations, he just bodied that, and the band and everyone. It's a fantastic moving piece, and it soars, and it's very like of the moment of the time, fitting for the story, and also like brings back that nostalgia for me of like growing up and listening to those just rock out songs of like the I want moment, and I think it's a great tune. But there's so many that I love.
Oh my god, all of them are great. There's like not a skip on the album. and and sometimes there are in shows. So none in the show. I've also heard you all are nominated for a bunch of Tony Awards, which is insane and I like deserved based on what I've heard about the show. Uh I've heard amazing things about the scenery and the staging. What
Yeah.
is your favorite scene in the show?
What's your question?
What is your favorite scene in the show and like favorite staging in the show?
Well, in regards to the actual set itself, I think the planks moving and all that stuff is really cool. And just the ground, the EPDM and this cork thing on the ground is really cool. The rain. Scene wise, I think the drive-in sequence as a whole, from beginning to end, is just really exciting. You have a bunch of different scenes and songs and things and all this stuff that happens and moments when we're all on stage together, and it's very exciting.
Love that, love that. And
This- yeah.
how would you convince I mean, I think the 12 Tony nominations would like help sell tickets a lot.
Yeah.
But how would you convince people to come see the show, whether they've read the book, seen the movie, or don't know what The Outsiders is?
How would I convince people to come to the show? This is going to be one of the best things you've ever seen. And you're going to think about it for a while, and it's going to both inspire you and release something inside of you. That's what I would say.
Yes.
I'm
I
never like this is the best, and you have to really like, I don't have to speak in superlatives. I just think that it stands for itself, and it will um, allow anyone at any age coming in there to feel something and to enjoy the experience. You know, it's not like you're in there for 5 hours studying some, ancient text in some class, and it's not like it's poorly done. It really touches on everything, and we do it with efficiency, and I think it's fantastic.
and like I I feel like care for the source material too as well.
There's a lot of
Because
love.
yeah,
Steven said, he said, I saw even as much as there's hate and animosity towards the opposing sides, there was so much love. And it
yes.
seems like we're having fun up there, and we are.
And you all did you all get to meet the author of the book?
Yes, I've gotten to meet her a few times from La Jolla to now, and visiting Tulsa was fantastic. It was a fantastic.
Oh yeah. I saw you all visited Tulsa, which is really cool. Was that like a little impromptu cast trip, or was it like a study session kind of for the show?
Exciting. It was really exciting, and we had a lot of fun. And it's one of my favorite moments of my professional career thus far. Just going there and doing that. Yeah.
Like seeing all where the set is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot like it's a star-studded movie, the movie of The Outsiders. If someone from the movie came to the show, who would you be most starstruck to meet?
Well, Matt Dillon came, and that was amazing. Matt Dillon came.
Oh,
It was super fantastic. I'm a big Rob Lowe fan. I'm a big fan of all of them. Macchio, like everybody, Thomas Howell, like
legends.
every, I got to talk to Leif Garrett, who played my role,
Nice.
and he was. I'm hoping, come man, come to the show. But like, any of them coming, would be wonderful. But I also think I love. I was watching the show. I think it was Californication, and I remember Rob Lowe had a role on it, and I didn't really know him that much. I just had heard of him from being, a big time famous actor. And I loved this kind of quirky, like he would say, like, literally, I'm just going, and like do all these things. And I would just think it would be a ball if he came. Leif, of course, I got to talk to him. That was wonderful. Matt Dillon to come again. I mean, any of them would be fantastic, and I'd be honored to have any of them come.
I mean, how iconic to get to connect with the person who played your character in the movie.
Calling him. And essentially he just set me free and said, everything that's there and all the ghosts of it live there and just make it your own and do your thing. But then
Yep.
he did give me a few comments and stuff, which was fun.
Yep. I mean, you're bringing it to a whole new audience of people.
Yep.
I convinced my friend who's never read the book, never seen the movie to go see the show with me. And I'm like, you should probably read the book first. But she's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go in blind.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So she'll have a different outlook on the show than me, which is really cool.
Happens. Like, God, what?
Yes. Oh my God, she's gonna be like, what? I mean, she's gonna sob by the end of the show, but it's gonna be like completely catch her off guard, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, do you have any dream roles in theater? I saw a cover of yours on like a last 5 years cover online.
Oh, you digged. You found. You
I
looked.
did, I did. So, would you go back to that ever?
Yeah, I would anything Jason Robert found. I'm the biggest fan. And then getting to work with him was fantastic. So I would love to interpret any of that work. Also, I've always loved Company. I love Bobby and Company and Sondheim in particular, but Company, it's always resonated with me since I was a kid. I got to see the show at a younger age, and that was fantastic. And then also any sort of role for Still Talking Stage where I would be able to kind of use the various talents and passions that I have because I have an extensive knowledge. Fortunately, I trained playing piano and guitar and things. I also love to dance. And so if I could kind of do something that requires all of that while singing and acting in this in a show would be really exciting. And then or writing something or collaborating in some way. And then um with film and TV, I mean a lot of the people that I mentioned, being able to work with those people, everyone from De Niro and Pacino and Day Lewis and all the greats, Meryl Streep, all the way down to even people closer to my age and a lot of the directors I was just telling you about, like just to collaborate with those people would be so exciting for me. And I know brings out my best work. Um, when it comes to a role, I feel like the most exciting thing is it's the next role that I have is going to be the most exciting thing. And as much as I have, certain things that I grew up with and the kid in me loves, like watching Gladiator or doing different things and like, the idea of being in these kinds of stories. I also though like Paul Giamatti's fantastic and watching Sideways and just all these different things. And so like to be able to work in any capacity, whether it's with these directors, writers, actors, I know will bring out the best in me, both in theater and in film. So that's really what I'm looking forward to.
I mean, I feel like that's like all of that is gonna happen for you just because I see the passion that you have as a fan of everything. And
Thanks.
that's gonna help you get reach peak success in life. So how do you work on self-confidence in this industry with all the auditions that you go in for? I mean, you've done a lot of TV and film work, which I have not mentioned yet, but you've kind of alluded to. So you've done a lot of TV and film work, so you're not no stranger to any audition, whether it's theater, TV, or film.
How do I approach
How do
the
you work on self-confidence when going in for these roles?
you just got to be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Just keep trying. Just got to keep trying. It's perseverance. I work on it every day. You know what I mean? And I think you can't fool yourself when you put your head down at night. So do the work, do the work. But also, what I have to remind myself is that I only have the time I have, and I'm only in the moment I'm in, and I can't change the fact that let's say an audition comes and I'm crazed, and I only have 24 hours to do it to begin with, and I'm actually only going to have 3 hours to literally work on it and do it, and then on top of that, let's say I was going through something 2 days before, and so I'm a little stressed. Like, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at when I'm going to do that piece of work. And it's either going to help me and make it better, or it's not. Maybe it wouldn't even matter because the role was meant for me or it wasn't meant for me. But either way, you have to let go. And that's very difficult sometimes to do that, and to not say, like I wish things could always be this bliss, perfect thing. But the reality is it's never going to be like that. And at times when things align like that, that's beautiful. But then that doesn't mean that everything works out. It just means that maybe it felt better. And so I think just trusting the process, being patient. And I'm also realizing, like, just be really, I was about to curse, but just be really, really kind to people. You know what I mean? And like, be genuine, care, be interested, treat people well. And I think that that goes a long way, because a lot of the things that I've done recently have come down the pipeline through people that I've worked with before, someone that I got close to something a few times and remembers me. And like, I don't think I've even realized, like, I don't need 100 people saying yes. I just need one. And like, there's something also to being loyal to the fans and people who support you from the get-go. And that to me is how you build and expand your foundation to meet other wonderful people. And I really believe in that. Like, I want to work with people I like working with. And that means people are going to want to work with me if they like working with me. And also, like, not everyone's a perfect fit. Sometimes you're going to work with someone and say, you really like doing things this way, and I'm kind of over here. And like, but then you find it and you both grow, as we always do. You have to come together, which is the beautiful part about collaboration. But then, like, maybe like, okay, it's a little easier working with these people. But the ease isn't always good, because I find I grow the most when I'm put in environments where I'm working, where I don't always have everyone kind of doing things in a way that I would naturally do it. That's when I grow.
Yes. Oh no, that absolutely, like, the discomfort helps with growth first and foremost.
Yep. Yeah.
So before I kind of like wrap up, I want to ask, where can people follow you on social
Yeah.
media to keep up with what you're doing?
Hour. Oh my gosh. Where can people follow me in social media? At, and that's going to be my full name pretty much in everything, at Kevin William Paul. Instagram, I just uploaded a TikTok, like anything, at Kevin William Paul. And yeah, William, named after my great grandpa Willie.
Oh,
Kevin, because my parents just decided it. Paul, because it is what it is. That's my real
oh,
last name.
yeah. Hey, it's a good name.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Thank you. It was
And I'll
wonderful.
post
Yeah.
everything in the description. And
Okay.
do you have anything else you'd want to promote, or do you just want to tell them just see the outsiders?
I think we've covered so much. Comes to the outsiders, and stay creative, stay open, and remember tomorrow's a new day. Keep persevering, breathe, and tell the people you love them.
All good advice. All good advice. Well, thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to coming to see the show in a couple weeks.
So excited. You gotta let me know when you come, okay?
I definitely will. Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!